If I fall off, you got it.
With the mission to keep as many men on as many guns for as long as possible, we called him Doc. Welcome to Combat Vet Vision. And now your host, Aaron Chief Seabird.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Welcome to Combat Vet Vision. This is a place where I get to tell my story. I get to talk about situations that me as a combat vet, this is my opinion, my life, my journey. It's also the opinion and lives and journeys of those that I bring on to this program. And I bring on other combat vets, sponsors, supporters, volunteers, other people that are just interested in sponsoring us in some way or having some interest in us. And I want to thank SitchRadio.com for putting my show on, Brian Colburn, who makes it happen every week. And this week, I'm going to talk about forgiving ourselves. And that's a bit of a topic. Maybe I haven't touched any of these topics lately because they're really personal. They take take a lot to kind of focus on and bring back some attention. I deployed to Iraq 3 separate times. I deployed the first time with 3-5 as we pushed our way through all the way up to past up into Saddam City, up past Baghdad, and then we came back down to Diwania after we felt like we took the country, and we headed home. All the battalions did, and for the first time ever, they stood on the grinder since World War II. All the battalions were there at the same time because most of the time a battalion is always rotating and deploying. And we got to see a ceremony that was pretty awesome. Banners, awards, thoughts and processes, and the words that we will have to go back. So, second time I went back with platoon that was with the security forces, helping the Iraqis take over their country, and really kind of just driving around, telling them what to do. Hey, guard this bridge. Hey, set up this police station. Start training police. Start training your combat vets. Or your combat guys. Let's get the 3rd Brigade set up. The 3rd Brigade, 3rd Army Brigade for the Iraqi Army. Let's get that stood up in Habbaniyah. I came back from that, and I, each one of those times had its own chaos, had its own combat. If you get stars on your combat action, I would have had 3 separate times, 3 different deployments, combat every single time. And the 3rd time I deployed with the 3rd Brigade MIT team being embedded with the Iraqi military, telling them what to do, but also being there right there with them, helping them process these things. 2 Americans going out with a platoon of Iraqis doing patrols. Stuff that I was told about when I joined that could happen. Things that I've seen movies about that I really didn't think in the 21st century that was really going to be something that was going to be a true course of action. And when I got blown up, I was about 4-5 months into our deployment. Let's see here. Yeah, 4 months. Almost 5. Did a whole bunch of training to be a MIT team guy. 4 months into my deployment, I get blown up, and I take over 100 pieces of shrapnel. Had my last rites read to me, and I'm pulled out of my team, and I'm no longer the uniform wearing, ready, fully capable individual that I was before I deployed to that element. And so I start talking about forgiving ourselves, and there's a lot involved in that. When I first came back, going through a lot of processes, I realized I'm not supposed to be the guy that gets hit. I'm supposed to be the guy helping guys that gets hit. I'm a corpsman. I'm a medical guy. I'm also part of a team that's combat effective and ready to deal with the enemy on a whole bunch of different levels. But I just never, I didn't have the chance on that day. That day it took me out, and I felt bad. I felt bad that I was pulled out of my team. I felt bad that I left a 10-man team, now nine, and I think we put these pressures on us because there's a lot to it. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of history for corpsmen. I also felt bad when I got my team back and they kind of said, "Hey, we gone through 2 corpsmen," and they had some kind of mixed stories about these guys that they didn't really get out of the vehicle and during a firefight and came up with some dealing with some stuff that didn't shed a light that was the kind of light that corpsmen have had in our past history. So I kind of felt guilty about that. I felt guilty for a lot of things. I still feel guilty, but every day I try to focus on what is it that I'm moving forward in. What is it that I can forgive myself for, and how does that process work? Well, in the show notes, I kind of state in the last part of them, go through the range of motion, standing in front of a mirror. And so often there's these pictures of this mirror where guys are looking into it and they see themselves in the past as this superhero, as this guy in uniform looking squared away, ready to go, but inside just tore up. But I ask you to look in this mirror and say, "Hey, you're forgiven. You are forgiven." And maybe you need to just spend a little bit of time in prayer, praying to that higher power, God, giving that chance to ask for forgiveness in that fashion too. And I believe, God forgives us all the time for so many things. We are imperfect human beings, but it's up to us to forgive ourselves. Forgive ourselves for not doing or standing up or being brave enough or well enough or squared away enough or whatever those things are that you think you're not doing, because we are always taught to continue to strive to be better. And that's a great thing. That's totally acceptable, totally understandable, recommended 100%. I'm for it. But we can't necessarily strive for perfect as much as people would like to say that. That's not really attainable. Um, not not in this planet. But the striving for it is attainable, meaning you can always better yourself. You can read a little bit more. You can, you know, spend one more minute shining your shoes, which aren't required anymore because shoes come in all kinds of ways that don't need shining anymore. Uh, but you could spend one more minute squaring away your uniform, ironing it or squaring that away. And even that materials don't necessarily need to be ironed anymore. Got a lot of different things out there. But what I'm getting at is if you're chasing something that's worth chasing, then chase it. If it's making you miserable, evaluate it, figure it out. But at the end of the day, when things are not going your way, when you screwed up for something or you felt like you screwed up, forgive yourself, pick yourself back up and move on. And I don't mean forget about it because that's a different thing. But being able to process it and come up with a standard that you're willing to make the standard for you, because there's going to be a lot of standards that are going to be set for you. There's going to be a lot of standards that history has set for you. History is set for me. Being a corpsman and all the decorations that go along with that, the pride that I had being a corpsman. Even now, as I think about it, I feel like I don't live up to it, but I strived for it. I appreciated it. I hope that I did enough to live up to it. But those bars are pretty high, and history books, those those things, those standards, those goals, those objectives, the heroisms, the stories that are told, super, super amazing. Uh, no win situations that were winnable that finally came through. But at the end of the day, you just got to look at yourself and say, hey, you know what? You're just a human. You make mistakes. You're flawed. There's plenty of humans that are more flawed than you and even better than you. That's always the story. It's always the truth. It's always the way. And it goes hand in hand with a lot of the things that I talk about. It goes with war being something we went and did, and it was like the most amazing, highest like deal that was required of us. You know, when you look at all the sports out there, and I've talked about it before, you know, a lot of guys were like, they came into the Navy as corpsmen, and in 6 months or less, they were going to war. I was already 10 years into my service almost, and we went to war. So it seemed like for 10 years, I was practicing and I was playing to make it to the Super Bowl. And we finally went to the Super Bowl. And these guys uh, got to play in the Super Bowl in different directions, different ways. But things maybe didn't work out. The plays didn't work out. Some things didn't work out for everybody. Not everybody made it back. It's not our fault ultimately as humans. Things are going to play out the way they're going to play out. All these different factors. The factor of the enemy is a factor. Chain of command is a factor. Weather is a factor. Situation and where you are is a factor. And sometimes it just comes down to luck. Today I was lucky. Today it was this or that. Today I was able to save somebody. Tomorrow I wasn't. But in today I became the guy that needed to be saved. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't hold any regrets or I don't hold any hardship to those who put me in harm's way. Not that they put me in harm's way, situations needed to be the way that they needed to be that put us into harm's way. Sometimes I'm upset at myself because I held a standard and I didn't make that standard the day that I got blown up because I wore my gear more than anybody. But I took a chance, stood out on this porch, didn't have my flak on at the time, and most of the time I'll wear it. But hey, I'm going out on this building. There's a pillar, there's a couple pillars out there, there's some overhang. I felt pretty confident in the situation because nothing was going on. But the one time that you don't do it right, I've carried this guilt for a long time about it. But I forgive myself on it in some aspects. On other aspects, it's just like I didn't meet the standard, my standard, and the military's. But that wouldn't have helped me on that day necessarily. Would have maybe helped something else. I don't know. Maybe if I had it on, I look at all the situations. Maybe I'd be blind. So luckily, I had a camera up to my face at the time that the shrapnel came. couple pieces hit my camera, a couple pieces in my arm, my hand. It was basically so I got this Hewlett Packard camera, old camera. Not that old, but old. We don't need cameras anymore. We've got phones that they're cameras that occasionally call people. But I have that as a reminder. It's got my blood on it and everything. It's got nice couple pieces of shrapnel in it. But I'd be blind if I didn't have that up to my face. And maybe if I was wearing my gear proper, maybe I wouldn't have put my hands up to my face at that time. Maybe I would have done something else. Maybe my movements would have been slowed and that shrapnel would have hit me somewhere else. I don't know. All I'm saying is that the situations that we put ourselves in sometimes affect us. And we got to go home and we got to look ourselves in the mirror and say, hey, you're forgiven. Forgive yourself. It's a process, and do it until you can actually feel it, because the emotions of it all just seem so not really there a lot of times. I felt like that with a lot of things. Getting back out into public, where do I feel comfortable? How do I feel comfortable? Am I aware enough? You know, you're always doing your 5 and 25s, driving down the road or whatever you're doing, patrols, making sure, looking for that IED. But what about the one you can't see? The one that you couldn't see, but it still got somebody. You write yourself off as like, oh man, it was my fault. I should have been looking better. I should have missed that. But there's so much information all the time. And now in society, as I do it, there's so much information all the time. If something kicks off, do I have to feel guilty again? I think we go to combat and we come back to society, and there's no place for combat in society because it's just not understandable. The chaos, the carnage, the standards that are withheld, the trying to maintain and do incredible things all day, every day, on the grind. Um, a level of intensity that feeds your mind, your heart, your soul. It's taxing. It probably ages us a lot faster than most because I think the minds don't work that fast, that intense all the time, in and out, and our daily lives are on jeopardy of ending every single day when we were there in combat. It's a never-ending story of I'm walking in the valley of death. So forgive yourself a little bit, but still strive to be a good person. Strive to be aware. Strive to protect those that you want to protect. Strive to make good things happen when sometimes those things are um, those things are hard to think about, hard to talk about. And again, this is my opinion. This is my life. This is how I manage it. It doesn't mean that that's always going to work out like that. But you know, this is mine, and I definitely would love to have other people come on here and talk about whatever they want to talk about. And that's what I really do. And even then, even as I think about it, as I think about my story, as I came in, and sometimes I'll tell it pretty raw, pretty crazy, but I still have to sugarcoat it a little bit, no matter what, because again, there's no place for combat in society. As you tell stories in society, these stories don't always cross over. And I'll say the pretty movies have done it justice pretty well for the most part, because when you get into the whole chaos of it, the rawness and the death and carnage, sometimes the movies kind of show that. It kind of gets into it a little bit, but not too much, because it's really kind of raw on the system. It's not something you want to see every day. But for some people, they're facing it every day now, right? Um, but do whatever technique it takes to kind of find that forgiveness in yourself. Suicides are way too much. They're way too often. I hear about them. I hear about buddies. I hear about other buddies that have buddies that have taken their lives. If you need help and support with that, get with the PTSD Foundation of America. Get into the VA. Check it out. A matter of fact, take a break. We'll uh, let the message from the VA come on, and we'll go from there. Brian, if we got that message, Brian Colburn, sitchradio.com. Yeah, go ahead and post that message, brother. All right, maybe not. All right. Well, the VA. Oh, there. Here we go. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Mike Richmond of the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs with this message for veterans. Are you seeking to honor those who have served and sacrificed for their country? Visit the Veterans Legacy Memorial. This digital platform, run by VA's National Cemetery Administration, is dedicated to the memory of nearly 4.5 million veterans interred at VA's national cemeteries, VA's grant-funded tribal, state, and territory cemeteries, and 2 U.S. National Park Service cemeteries. The memorial's interactive features allow people to remember veterans by posting tributes and comments, uploading images, and sharing a veteran's military timeline, achievements, biographical information, historical documents, and more. Over 45,000 submissions have been made to the existing profile pages since the site was launched. That's the Veterans Legacy Memorial. I'm Mike Richmond.
Well, thanks. And this is brought to you by sitchradio.com. Combat Vet Vision comes from them. I usually talk about the PTSD Foundation of America and Warrior Built Foundation. PTSD Foundation is peer-to-peer support for combat vets. We run warrior groups across the United States. Send our guys to Houston, Texas, to Camp Hope to get some further help for 6 to 9 months, no cost to the veteran. And Warrior Built is vocational recreational support for our combat vets, doing an incredible job of hooking our guys up with some really incredible things. Got a softball team, a couple race teams that get together that go out and race. Right now, they're doing some incredible things with some welding classes in Lake Elsinore. For those who don't know, and they have a full-on music studio where I actually started my podcast in the studio, Warrior Built Studios, there, and doing some stuff. So, hey, thanks for being here. But as we talk about forgiveness just a little bit more, I just want to remind you that sometimes going through the range of motion of saying it, of asking for it, of asking yourself for it, eventually it can become reality. At first, it may not feel that way. It's just repracticing to be consistent and better for yourself. And the tools that we need to do that is to be involved with yourself. So please make it to your appointments, get involved with yourself, with your churches, with other things, with friends, buddies. Make sure you got a battle buddy that you can reach out to and do a whole bunch of things within that fashion. There's a lot of nonprofit organizations doing some incredible things out there. Get involved with some of that and find the things in life that still mean something to you and grab a hold of them. And even if you feel like you have that one thing that's working for you, that's got it's got your interest, it's fixing all the things for you, it's good, and your life seems like it's good. Don't forget to kind of taste other pieces of life so that you can make sure that you have a collection of things that will be um, helping you better forgive yourself or even better managing your life, better making it through. Because it's real easy if that one thing fails, what do you have to fall back on? Just something to think about. But hey, I appreciate you guys who listen to my podcast, support it. Thank you very much for all of you listeners out there. If there's a subject matter that you're thinking about, or if you're a nonprofit organization or somebody that wants to get on and get on here and talk, please hit me up. And thanks a lot again to SitchRadio.com for making this happen. This is Aaron Siebert, retired Navy Chief, signing off. Strength and honor. Out.